Hello, hello. My name is Kayla Brick. I'm an Upwork coach and a professional illustrator. And today we are talking all about contracts on Upwork. And this is one of those things where if you're going through the process of sending proposals, you got your profile dialed in, you have a conversation with a client, and you have to actually send that contract to them. There's this little moment where Upwork doesn't really guide you through that process. There's these milestones and fixed rate versus hourly contracts, and it can be really overwhelming, super confusing, and we are going to break it down today. Upwork has two kinds of contracts on here. So we have hourly and we have fixed rate contracts. I am not going to hide my bias from you guys. I love a fixed rate contract, but the difference is that hourly is based on how much you are charging the client per hour. So you might have an hourly of 50 an hour. So if the contract takes 4 hours, you're going to charge them $200 in that case. Fixed rate contract would be more, it doesn't really matter for the client how long things actually take you to do, but you will be paid a fixed rate at the very end of that contract. So it's not really on them in terms of how long things actually take you to do. So you have to be in charge of that stuff and really know how long things actually take you to do on your side of things so that you're not really having a problem in terms of payment at the end of that project. We don't want to be stuck in a position where it is way more work than you thought, or on the hourly side that you're charging clients way more than they initially thought. So we don't want to have that sticker shock moment for them. That's why I prefer fixed rate. Everybody knows what the finances are, budget stuff. When it comes to sending a contract on Upwork, you will talk to the client. Let's just say they pop in your inbox here up in the messaging center. You send a proposal to them, they reach out to you via Messenger, and you're having a little bit of that back and forth. You're starting to talk about budget stuff and a little bit of the logistical things. You're starting to have that conversation, and now you need to have them do the actual contract. And this is the weird thing about Upwork is it's not Fiverr, where it's a lot easier to send a agreement to a client. There's not really an obvious button that says send contract to a client. It's more so something that the client is supposed to do on their end. And I really highly recommend that you actually have them do that, because not only is it easier for Upwork in the interface because it's so much easier on their side of things, it's also much more comfortable for clients when they feel like what you have discussed with them in terms of how long things are going to take, budget stuff, anything like that, where it feels like it's in their control and they don't feel like you have broken down the contract and they're going to sign something that they don't fully understand. So I like to have the client do it regardless, and I'm going to highly recommend that you guys do that as well. So let's talk about how that works. I highly recommend that all of you get a client profile on Upwork. And this is one of those things that we can go to the top right corner here. I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to go down to this little switch accounts. So I've talked a little bit about how to create a client profile. I'm going to show you guys how to do that today too. But this is a really crucial thing to have just in your tool belt, because when I click on this, it's going to bring me to the client side of Upwork. So I can now see what the client who I'm speaking to is actually looking at. So when I guide them through the process of setting up a contract, I have screenshots, I have the access to what they're seeing in their viewpoint so that I can walk them through how to actually set up that contract, where to go, all of that stuff, because it's not too different from what we're seeing in terms of our freelancing side, but it is different enough where it can get overwhelming for clients who are already struggling with Upwork's interface. So nice to have all of this. Really, really good idea to go up to the little search bar. And if you can, really good idea to try and find yourself on here, which is not an easy task, by the way, but it is worth doing if you can. So let me see if I can actually find myself today. Okay, so when you just put in your name and also the first letter of your last name, it's the easiest way to find yourself on Upwork. Not always guaranteed, especially if you're a new profile and you haven't been indexed, registered in Upwork's algorithm with keywords and things. So if you're not fully optimized, it's a little more challenging to find yourself. So if early, you just started your profile, do not worry. You will eventually be able to find yourself if you just click through the pages a little bit. You are in there, I promise. But know that that's probably why that's happening. Very easy to fix. I have a lot of videos on my channel about talking about algorithmic stuff, keywords and things. So go check those out so you can start to get your profile dialed in and all that good stuff. But really good idea to just find yourself. Go here and see, this is the client side. This is what it's going to look like whenever they are going to try and hire when I go here, I can click on my name and then it's going to pull up my profile, and we can go here and I can take screenshots of this. I can show them the little hire button. I can show them the messaging button. I can go to, let's say they want to see my full profile. I can show them this little guy in the top right corner, all of that good stuff. Really, really cool to have little screenshots of that. If you know how to draw on screenshots, also really helpful too. If you can just put a big arrow here, you can use Canva for stuff like that. If you don't know how to draw on stuff and things like that too, Canva is very, very good, very intuitive to use. So take screenshots of this, send them to the client. This is really, really, really helpful whenever you're trying to actually have a contract be built with a client on here, because then they can see you and also how to hire you and make it super easy for them. A lot of times, because Upwork's interface is a little challenged in some respects, it's not Fiverr wins categorically, full stop, period. They just win in terms of their interface and how it's structured. So if you can help clients understand how to hire you, get them over the hurdle of just working on Upwork in general, they're going to trust you a little bit more than somebody who might have more reviews, more earnings, all of that stuff. If you just show them that you can walk them through the process and you can help them through it and you can explain it in a way that makes sense, you're immediately going to have a little bit more rapport with them than anybody who has more reviews than you. So little things like that can make a difference between somebody who gets hired and somebody who doesn't. Let's talk about how to actually set it up from the messaging center too. So up in the messaging center here, I'm going to pop in here real quick. And I have actually hired a bunch of people on here. I do this for my own stuff. I also do this just to see what the process is like and what Upwork's doing and seeing the differences that they make. So let's just say that I want to go hire somebody, and I'm going to find somebody who I almost hired at one point. So when I click on this here, I can see a little bit of our back and forth. I can see my proposal, what her proposal was. And then here on the right-hand side, I can see send offer. And I'm going to click on that. This is what it looks like when I am going to send an offer to a freelancer. So this is what they are going to see. You can take screenshots of all of this stuff and show them exactly what to do, especially if you already had a chat with them about how you want to break it down into milestones. So doesn't really matter hourly, fixed rate, doesn't really matter here at this stage, but we're just trying to think to ourselves, okay, how do I want to walk them through this process? So if it's a fixed rate contract, let's say that we have 3 different website pages that need to be built. So you may want to have a fixed rate contract, which is for all 3 pages. This is going to be what you are paid at the very end of that work. Has nothing to do with how long it takes you. It's just for these particular items, it's going to be this much in terms of the budget. So that, in my mind, for a contract on Upwork would be 3 different milestones. And milestones are just checkpoints in a contract. So we have the contract itself, and then we have milestones at 3 different stages in this particular case. So you are paid at 3 different stages. And that is the best way to protect you as the freelancer, but also the client, so that they don't feel like they're not getting the work in a pace that makes sense for both of you. In an hourly sense, it's a little bit more wishy-washy in terms of the hourly situation there. So you may want to talk to them about how long something will take you in advance. So that's the way that I would do it. So it's a little closer to a fixed rate contract, because I'm always trying to get them towards the fixed rate. But what we don't want to happen is you suggest a certain hourly. So you're going to say it's 35 an hour and it's going to take me 4 hours. And then it ends up taking you much longer for a multitude of reasons. It could be any kind of reasons. It could be because you don't fully know how long things take you. It could be because something happened in the project and now you're struggling to make it work. Anything could happen in that case. But what we don't want to do is sticker shock the client and make them feel like you didn't tell them upfront what it was going to cost. So you want to try and communicate as much as possible upfront. And that's all of the logistics, all of the specs, all of the budget stuff before you ever get them to this stage. So once they're here, we want them to already know how long things are going to take, how much the budget is going to be, all that stuff. So you want to already have had that conversation with the client. So I have payment option, which is fixed rate or by hour. hourly. So we have fixed rate contract or hourly. I'm always going to recommend that you guys do fixed rate contracts because it's better for the client. So they know how much they're going to be paying you by the end of the work. And then as a freelancer, it can take you as much time or as little time as it needs for you to do it. So you could be paid, let's say, so for example, whenever I do a portrait for somebody, a lot of times it will take me an hour to an hour 45 for me to do a portrait, generally speaking, like a really solid, high quality, full color portrait. I'm happy with that and I can ship it and there's no problems. I like to work at 100 an hour, ideally, or more than that if I can. And so I'm going to adjust my budget range. So I might charge them $300, $400, $500 for that portrait so that I am working at an hourly rate that makes sense for me personally. They don't need to know how long things take, being paid for the experience that I have, right? So I'm doing it as quickly as I possibly can and then delivering them a really good product. And they're happy because it didn't take very long, but it's also making sense in terms of the budget and everything is just working out really, really well. So the only time that makes sense though is that if we time ourselves, if we actually genuinely how long things actually take us to do and to do it right, of course, because we don't want to send bad work to clients because that's going to be really bad for us in terms of reviews and things like that. So as long as you know how long things actually take you to do, a fixed rate contract always makes sense. Hourly is a lot of times what clients think is the only option. They think to themselves that hourly is the only way to do things, and they're just not. That's not accurate in the slightest, but this can be a little bit challenging, especially in the beginning. If you're just starting out on here, you don't fully understand how long things actually take you to do. You can very easily get into a position where you're struggling to make sure that the client is happy and they also pay you properly. So the last thing you want to do is at the end of the work have to tell them things took much longer than I expected, and then it just creates a lot of issues generally. So I like this much more, but both are perfectly fine. If you like hourly and it feels better to you, then go do that. I have tons of people I work with and know on Up who swear by an hourly contract. I don't know. Go do it. It drives me crazy. It's not how I operate, but they swear by it and they say, Kayla, if you would just do it this way, it would suddenly work. And they probably are right about that. But I just don't, if it works for you, if it feels right, then just do that. Whatever makes sense for you personally. So hourly, fixed rate, both make perfect sense. Let's just do a fixed rate so that we can see what that looks like. This is the amount that you're going to talk to the client about. You're going to talk about that budget, whatever it is. You're going to put that here. So $650 in this case is the one that you've agreed on. Then we're going to do the whole project. So there would be one milestone in this case, and all of the $650 would be in just one milestone. So you would deliver the work, money sits in escrow, and escrow just means that it's just on hold until the client approves the work. So you'll submit it, they approve it, you're paid. And we have the other option to do pay in installments, which is really just what milestones are. They're just checkpoints. So you could split the $650 into stages. If I was to do this in an illustration sense, it would be, I could be paid, the first milestone would be for the sketch, then the second one would be for the ink, and then the color, then the finalization, and then I would maybe do a milestone just for formatting and things like that if you really wanted to drag it out. It's completely up to you. Just know that it's much better for you to have the milestones be set a certain way so that you are being paid exactly at the pace that you both have agreed to. Really important in this case, and this is something that's just specific to contracts on Upwork, that first milestone, so this or this, both are, it's actually the case for both of these things. That first milestone is always going to be funded by the client. So in order for the contract to even start, they have to put money in escrow for that contract to even begin. So it can't be activated until that happens. Milestones after the first one, so second, third, fourth, onward, do need to be manually funded by the client. So, and that's just for Upwork because they don't really know the nature of your contract. They don't know if you're going to change your mind. So they don't really want to put money in escrow and have the client's card charged or put in escrow in advance of you guys working together. So it's better to have it be manually funded along the way. But this is really, really important for anybody who's new on here, who's just getting started and doesn't know what's going on in terms of just being on here in a day-to-day fashion. Do not work ahead of milestones. When I say that, I made a huge mistake with my second client on here. I had a contract that was set up and I did the first milestone, everything went great. And then I worked ahead of the third or the second and the third milestone to the point where I was well ahead and I thought I was trying to be a really good freelancer and a really good person to work with because I was trying to go ahead and show them more and more and more. But what I didn't realize is that I hadn't actually had them fund anything. And so what could have happened is he didn't pay for anything and I could have delivered the work and I would just not have been paid in that case. Luckily, the client was really lovely and had no problems funding the milestones once I asked, but it's really, really important that we always fund the milestone first and then submit work. Always, 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 so that you are protected and the client is protected. Everything works really, really well when that happens. So this is you can decide in whether or not you want to do installments or if you want to do it all at once. You also have a due date. This is really just something that's internal to Upwork. It's not like Fiverr where there's a big countdown clock or anything spooky like that. This is just between you and the client. Nothing is going to happen. You will not be dinged in any way, any capacity for your profile or anything like that if you don't get it in on time. It's not going to happen. This is just a flexible thing for you and the client if you guys did talk about due date stuff. Really cool to have in there if you want, but not essential or by any means. Let's see. You want to read these? They are actually really useful. I like Upwork's. I don't always like their terminology and some of their naming conventions, but some of the stuff that they have embedded in their system to help you understand how things work. Really good to read that stuff. Terms of service related things, also something I highly recommend that you guys read at least once. I'm a huge nerd for terms of service. I know it makes me a big dork. I know that, but for some reason, I like to read them just to see what I'm signing. I like to know what's going on. The cool thing with terms of service is that you will see a lot of things it's very repetitive between companies. So Fiverr's terms of service will have a lot of the same legal language that Upwork's terms of service does. And so you'll start to see that and then you'll get an idea of what's consistent and what makes sense and things. So just read it. It's not a big deal if you don't, because I can tell you it's pretty standard stuff here, but not a bad thing to do if you have a little extra time. All that is fairly standard stuff, but that is the basic structure of how to send an offer on Upwork from the client's perspective. Really, really good idea to send them screenshots of all this stuff so that they understand exactly how to do it, because Upwork's interface is so confusing, especially for clients when they're just starting out on here. Because a lot of people are new to Upwork. They haven't used the platform before. They don't know how to send you an offer. And it's really, really nice to put the power in their hands so they feel like they can control what you guys have talked about. So as a final note, I'm going to show you how to actually create a client profile on here. We're going to swap back into our freelancer profile here. And then I'm going to go down to account settings right here, the little gear icon. And then right here, under additional accounts, you have two options. You can create an agency account, a client account. I recommend creating just a client account so that you can see what the client can see on their side of things. Agency account is a little overkill. We don't need that. That is more for a team of freelancers. They're going to ask you a bunch of questions. It's the same thing that you did when you first created an account on Upwork, so not anything that's too crazy. But in this case, since we're just using it to go see what the client side of things is, I wouldn't really worry about making sure it's perfect or anything. Just answer the questions, go through it, make sure it's decent, relatively on brand or anything like that. But I wouldn't worry about it unless, of course, you do intend to actually hire somebody on here, which I've done once every few months. I will hire somebody on here just to see what the process is like and what Upwork's doing and just see what the clients are experiencing. And sometimes I just need stuff done anyway because I have my own little art projects I'm doing. But anyway, that is exactly how to send a contract to a client and how to break down things in terms of milestones, hours, all that good stuff. If you guys need any help with your profiles, you have questions about Upwork or anything like that, or you want my template, I have a free school account in my description. So do go say hi and I will get back to you. And if you need help with picking really good jobs on here and optimizing your profile in particular so that it's much easier to find you in search, then I will put that video somewhere on screen for you. And I will see you guys in the next one.